love the sort of idea of this podcast stuff they talk about on here. It's not surface level. I'll mess up everything else in my life. So I broke up with the boyfriend I had at the time at 3.5 years. Everyone in my family was a teacher. Yeah, that's a good question. That's really shit that my school had failed me. Cambridge is just such an overwhelming place, and I hate when people say this, and I don't want to be that girl, but my dad was made redundant after he got ill. A weird one, I got asked, I went to a therapy session. Guys, I could not be alive. She took up a job cleaning this guy's house. He was rich to the extent where I was like, they'd throw away brand new clothes. One girl donated £20, she didn't even get anything. I was like, I told you I could chat for England. I was looking up for the Boxalls, and everyone's a bit happier. One regret, so we didn't really get on. I was a young carer, and there were times when I really did look after him and punched someone. That's a good question. There was a lot. Really looked into Cambridge when my sister got into Oxford. A really disordered relationship with food. I think abhorrent that the amount of teenage girls that struggle with that. One of the hardest points, you feel really pissed off. Horrible stuff happens. Inequality there is, especially in terms of sex. You've got to feel a lot and do a lot and be a lot, and I've kept every birthday card. Good question.
Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my podcast, Coffees on Me, David Quan, where I strive to give guests legacy-worthy interviews that listeners can enjoy while cooking, commuting, relaxing, or walking their pets. A very reflective and humbling weekend for me, but it's particularly nice to recharge after work and to have an iced latte with my guest early on a Sunday morning. Feeling very, very good. I feel very blessed that we're now, approaching the next big podcast milestone of 100,000 podcast downloads. Please know that I don't take any of your time, feedback, and support for granted, because when I started this passion project podcast at a low point of my time in Cambridge, I was genuinely motivated by 3 founding ideals. Number 1, purpose of giving. Number 2, learning from others. And number 3, sharing of stories. These 3 aspirations still make up the content description for every single episode. Indeed, the opportunities to strive to give my courageous and insightful guests legacy-worthy interviews over coffee, tea, bubble tea, water, juice, or whatever it is, despite my many inadequacies, have been a tremendous privilege that imbues me with gratitude. I know that I will listen and look back to laugh at how naive I am. But if you have been enjoying the discussions on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and thank you, and please do consider leaving a review and nominating a guest by contacting me via my Linktree, David Quan. In fact, just yesterday I realised that on Spotify you could add a Q&A feature, and now below every episode I've added a question where if you got any more suggested questions for the guests, you can put it there. But for now, seeing this podcast on people's Spotify Wraps or receiving positive messages about the guests give me tremendous fulfillment. I cannot thank all my wonderful guests enough for their courage and insights, and I genuinely maintain the deep conviction that this passion project, if wholly true to those founding motivations about giving, learning, and sharing, is a worthwhile pursuit. So now on to my very bubbly, talented, and thoughtful guest. As the youngest child of 3, Sophie Boxall, who studies education at Homerton College, University of Cambridge, is all too familiar with the struggle to meet the achievements of her siblings. She has an older brother with autism who defied expectations of him based on ableism and graduated from University of Portsmouth with a 2-1 in biomedical science after being told he couldn't even attend a mainstream secondary school, let alone go to university. To continue to raise the bar, her sister achieved the highest grades she could have at every educational level, annoyingly for Sophie, and graduated from the University of Oxford with a BA in English, and to top it off, did a Master's at Corpus Christi College, University of Cambridge, during Sophie's first year at Cambridge. A passion of Sophie's is striving to achieve inclusive education and an inclusive society. This is particularly due to her experience of living and struggling with a hidden disability, her role as a young carer, and her time working with children with additional needs. Sophie has been a feminist since the womb and feels this has created a perpetual undertone, or a very obvious one, of anger to accompany this, causing her to develop pretty good debating skills, which is a nightmare for anyone she argues with. Sophie has struggled with mental health issues through a prominent part of her teenage years, with a lot of trauma and anxiety causing her first year at uni to be fairly tumultuous, to say the least. During her teens, Sophie's family experienced a lot of illness and her father being made redundant, so she experienced the move from middle-ish class to working class. Sophie believes that this period of her life has been very significant in shaping her understanding of the world and definitely solidified her already firm political beliefs, and despite the cultural weight offered by 2010s in terms of pop culture, carried mainly by Glee and the British YouTube scene. For Sophie, it's been a decade of feeling the expectation of figuring out her extraordinary dreams while just feeling pretty ordinary. Sophie, welcome to my podcast, Coffees on Me, David Con.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
I love how you brought suitcases here.
Yeah, I was prepared. I've got like a bag full of props for my podcasting. I come prepared all the time. I travelled up after work yesterday, so I have to travel back home again. Annoyingly for me, carrying that around the tube has not been the best experience of my life. So, and I also feel bad for the Londoners who have to put up with me being quite touristy everywhere with my suitcase. But
you've been working in a museum this summer. What have that involved?
So I returned to where I went last summer. Annoyingly for me, I was hoping to bag somewhere better, but big up Fort Nelson. So I'm just a museum assistant. So I kind of just walk around, talk to people, sell stuff, and that's about it, really. I do about 20,000 steps a day if I'm actually doing my job properly. But yeah, no, it's been quite good, apart from when it's raining. So most of it's outside, annoyingly for me. But yeah, 5 days a week. It's too much for me. I'm not meant to be full time.
Are you paid by hour or commission? Or both?
Hour. It's based on, it's just a hourly rate, to be honest. But annoyingly, I get paid at the end of every month, which is, I know it's normal, but I'm like, it's summer. Let me live. Give me money, please. But yeah, no, the people there are lovely. I know a lot of them from last year, so yeah, it's been good to work with them again. And no.
What have you learnt about yourself returning to the same place after a year of university? Have you changed much?
I feel like I definitely have. I feel like I'm definitely more, like, I won't put up with stuff as much. I think last summer was a bit of a funny one, because I obviously started the job there and then got my offer, like, and got my grades and all that happened. I think it was a big shift in my brain.
Confidence booster?
I don't know, I think I got into Cambridge and I was like, shit, really? Oh, sorry, can I swear? Okay. I was like, oh, now I actually have to go and do this, because I think it had been a concept. Like, when I sat my exams and all that, I was like, yeah, okay, well, I've applied to Cambridge, like, done that. And then it became really real. And then I decided I was like, I'll mess up everything else in my life. So I broke up with the boyfriend I had at the time of 3.5 years. So I was like, it's time to just mix it all up a bit. And then I was working at this place and it got a bit messy. And then I went back this year and I was like, you know what? Not putting up with it this time. I was like, I think a year at uni has taught me to just be like unapologetically myself and just argue people I want to argue with and not put up with their stuff. So yeah, I do feel a lot more grown up, even though I am the youngest. So I'm 19 and everyone else that kind of works there is upwards of like 23 to about 60. Like, it's a very diverse workplace in terms of age. But
any anecdotes there of you not putting up with things that, characterises everything that you just said?
So there was, it's just it's a bit dark. It's not really dark. It was just, there was some guys there who were just a bit touch deprived. And they did not treat me the nicest, and I didn't do anything about it at the time. And there was one guy he's 24, and I was very, very vulnerable at the time, and he just treated me really badly. So yeah, it was not good.
Sorry to hear.
It's alright.
Not acceptable.
I went back to work this year and I went, actually, you know what? F that. I went to my manager and I said to him, this is what happened last year. It happened twice at work, like, all of this sort of stuff.
It's not cool.
And then he was like, oh, I wish you'd told me last year. And annoyingly for me, nothing's really happened about it, because, that's how it is. But yeah, I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not letting people get away with this, because I've got this, like, mentality where actually I don't really care about getting justice for myself. It's more that I want that to not happen ever again to anyone else. Because there's, like, younger girls working in that cafe. There's my friend works there. And it's just kind of like, I don't want how I felt to ever be felt by someone else. And I think that's my case with a lot of stuff. Like, if someone treats me a certain way, I would like them to know that I don't like that, and I don't want them to ever treat anyone else like that.
That's very thoughtful of you, like, be an advocate and really just empathising and thinking about the wider implications and other people who may be vulnerable. So we study the same course, exact same degree, exact same track within it, education policy and international development, and we took the same papers. And so we how did you find first year education?
It was a lot.
Do you want to be a teacher?
No. Oh my god, no. The amount of times I get that stupid question. I'm like, no. Also because I come from a line of teachers. Like, everyone in my family was a teacher. Like, all of my grandparents were either lecturers or head teachers at schools locally, and then my parents both taught, and everyone's like, oh yeah, just following in the Boxall, like, the household, like, career. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to get out of this country and go and make change somewhere else, far from here. But yeah, it's been good. I definitely have learned a lot, and I've kind of learned more about myself in terms of what I'm actually interested in. Because the good thing about it is it's so broad. I don't know if you found that, like, when you didn't know what course to choose as well before you got there, and you're like, actually, this one looks like everything linking to what I am interested in. So it's just bringing it all back to the foundation of education. It's been good.
Yeah, I think it's very unique in the sense that everyone has an opinion, a very strong personal opinion with education, because we're all, experienced it, or even if you weren't in school, you can talk about the education of not being in school. What I did find with first year was that it seemed to be very compartmentalized, like the language communication and literacy course, like, learning about how babies learn language seems very different to, like, the global justice or sociology or like, critical debates where you're moving from, like, Meno's paradoxes to philosophy to, like, moral education to the reproduction of social inequality. I just didn't really know where I should focus my attention on. So I do agree that there is the strength of the breadth, but I also kind of struggled with pinpointing what am I actually meant to know.
Yeah, I think that, I definitely found that was the case. It was like there's less crossover. There's like barely any overlap between papers. I think occasionally Borjo would come up and I'd be like, oh, okay, hi, welcome back. Like LCL, critical debates and sociology. This is crazy.
It will come up even more next year.
I love the guy, but I've had enough of him. Like, he's come up too much for me. But yeah,
he's really won the cultural capital game really by appearing everywhere.
That's his top tip. He's like, just write about it enough. But it's just like he never actually explains it that well. He's just like, yeah, well, cultural capital is where you have a lot of capital in culture. So it's just like, come on, please explain it to me. I'm just reading pages and pages of you saying the same words over and over again. I mean, I could definitely not do as well as he has, because I'm not claiming to be some sort of theorist, but I can critique from afar.
So do you feel like, the theories that you gain in the degree, especially, say, on concepts like cultural capital, social inequalities, on, like, with like Durkheim and the modern kind of capitalist society and the lack of integration and the social norm. Obviously, it's nice to read about it, it's nice to write about it, but we also come from a personal perspective of what you experienced. Do you feel like it helped you to either, like, understand your life a bit better, or to see your own, or make sense of your own life in a different, more structured perspective?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. It's kind of like, I feel like, not to crap all over the theorists, but I feel like they kind of just put into words what everyone feels in their own way. So it's like, you could say cultural capital, but that's just a way of saying someone's experience. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to explain it well. It's just like, and they're privileged enough to have the education and the experience and the platform to say that sort of stuff, but there's people that could also offer a different insight, and I think there's just so many different people that view things differently. That's kind of, you can never have one term that describes everything that well. But yeah, I think it has helped me to kind of, like, vocalize stuff, but I think one of my pet peeves is that it feels like you have to be really well educated or really intelligent to be able to talk about big issues, and, like, everything's so politicized as it should be, but then
do you
people
think
feel
there's a lot
excluded
of
from it.
unnecessary jargon, which ironically is actually what they're talking about?
Yeah, it's like you're using all these big words and
which are actually just very common.
Yeah, and it's as someone that I'm not a big reader. I've never been a big reader. I've just not. I love reading. I do, but I just never get my head around it. It's just not for me. It's like I don't know all these big words, and then I'll go to these places where these people have been to really expensive schools, or they've been taught different vocab to me because I grew up in Portsmouth. I say water, like, you know what I mean, and I'm like, this is not my world. It feels really exclusionary.
That's the concept in LCR with the language codes or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's Bernstein.
Oh yeah, Bernstein. Yeah.
I hate that I remember it. I'm gonna block it from my brain. No more LCL ever. Decided. I'm not taking it. I'm not helping any first years either. They can struggle. I struggled. They can struggle.
That's a change from what you said 10 minutes ago. I don't want anyone else to feel that.
No, don't date me out. I know. I take that back. First years, if you're listening, I'm definitely gonna help you. No, first year LCL was evil. Oh no, it's not for me. But.
So that's really interesting observation that a lot of the difficult concepts and they don't write very succinctly and they use these big words and phrases and they're actually quite common sense, simplistic things. Yeah. So what are there any like actually genuinely new concepts or ideas or frameworks that you weren't really thinking much about that you learned?
Not too sure. I think anything to do with class I was pretty familiar on because it just made sense to me. But then I think a lot of stuff about in sociology I missed a lecture. I really annoyed I did. It was the gender and sexuality lecture. And then the feminist one as well. I think we missed those because of the strikes. So I would really love to go back and read some of the books on the reading list for that one because they seemed very interesting. But a lot of the concepts in that I'm not familiar with because I haven't learned. Or same with when we were doing colonialism and all that sort of stuff. I barely knew anything. I was like, that's really shit that my school had failed me in knowing anything about that. And I really enjoyed learning about that. And it was from people, and it was in a lecture, well, not a lecture, because education isn't really a lecture, is it? It's like a room full of 20 people. It was just all these different people from all over the world coming together and just like saying things that they knew, and then just like amalgamating that knowledge all together and like sharing that in that space was really like insightful for me. I think that was a lecture I really enjoyed, and it was hearing people really passionate about it. And it frustrated me because I came out of there feeling, why didn't I know any of this? It's so important to know this.
I didn't really understand it, to be honest, at the start.
Yeah, because I didn't even know the difference between the phrases. So there's like colonialism, coloniality. I was like,
I didn't pick
that
up.
What am I doing here?
Yeah.
I don't understand this. Like,
that's
this
right. I didn't actually understand that until like 2 months before my final exam. I was like, well,
but finally it clicks.
Yeah,
You're like,
but
that
actually is I think the crux of the degree when you get further, which I realised luckily before the end, but a bit too late, I think.
I mean, like, try and chuck it in every essay now.
Yeah.
Like, can I add half page to my diss?
Well, you said you live next to Angelina.
Yes,
You listened to her episode. How did you find that? Because we talked a fair bit about colonialism.
It was very good. I enjoyed it. It was weird to hear things about someone I'd lived next to for a year and knew very well and had gossiped about everything too. And it's just those sort of things. I love the sort of idea of this podcast. People don't mention the stuff they talk about on here. It's not surface level. It's not like you can meet someone and say, hi, I wouldn't be like, hi, my name's Sophie and I went to this school and I did this and this. You wouldn't then be like, boring. This is my biggest fear. Here's all my secrets. Like, I think it would be a bit overwhelming because I'm an oversharer, but I'm not that much of an oversharer. But yeah, it was really lovely to hear her in her American accent. I'm just annoying her now. Her international accent.
Did you tell her that you listened to it?
Yeah, I saw her yesterday actually, and I was saying to her, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go on and name drop you all. And say really horrible things about you all as well. But yeah, no, I think she said it was funny because she said, so you were listening to me. I think I was like in bed just reading or something and I was listening to it. And she said, so you're like trying to fall asleep with me whispering in your ear. She said, you could have just knocked on my door, I would have come over. And I was like, that's a bit uncomfortable. But just bang on the wall hard enough and she'd hear me. But yeah, that seems to be a theme in our like friendship over the year. The first day I got to uni, didn't know who she was because I just saw her posting her on her door, and then I didn't realise that she was in there. So I was, I basically had some friends in my room, and I was trying to put my pictures up because, you know, the little cork board you get, it's red at Homerton. It's not nice. I was trying to cover it. I was like, get rid of this. Red's not my colour. I was trying to pin up some photos, and I was using a whiteboard pen because I didn't have anything else. I was hammering into the wall, and she said, me and my mum was sat in my room and you were just going bang, bang, bang on the wall. She said that was the first time I'd ever knew you existed, and you were just making so much noise. So yeah, I could just start banging on the wall with a pen and she might pop over and whisper in my ear. But
that's awesome. Good to have those moments of encounters and friendships. Have you found making friends at Cambridge easy?
Yeah, I think so. Not to sound like up myself, but I've always been quite forward. Like, I think I'll just chat. Like, I can chat for England. I've been told that many times, which I think is kind of an insult when I think about it. But I love talking, and I love talking to people. So I'll just be like, immediately trying to find common ground about something, or like I'll say, oh, those are cool jeans. Like, one of my friends, first day of uni, there was this weird little scavenger hunt that Homerton did, and he had cool jeans on, and I went, oh my god, I love your jeans. And then we just started talking, and his name in my phone is now Sam Cool Jeans. So it's just those little moments, and it's like you remember them, and I think that's so sweet, because every time you look at that person, in the back of your head, that moment is there. So with Angelina, the first time I actually met her, she was really drunk. On the first night of uni, they were going out. I wasn't, I was ill. But she knocked on my door because she wanted to meet me. She was like, oh, I haven't met you yet. She gave me a massive hug, and I just think that's in my heart. And I just love, especially with like old friends as well, because a lot of the friends I have at home I've known since I was a little kid. So I was like at preschool, so 3 or 4.
Wow.
So I don't really remember how I met them, but it's nice to then as an adult make friends, because I think you hold it closer to your heart. It means more in a way. But yeah, I think Cambridge is just such an overwhelming place that I think everyone bonds over the fact that we're all feeling a bit crap. And then it makes it so much easier to just get on with people. And yeah, there'll be people you don't really like get on with to that extent, but I think everyone's got that solidarity of the sense that, okay, we just need to be nice to each other. Like, no one needs any drama. It's enough being here. Like, being here is enough drama for us. So I think it's really lovely. And Homerton as well is the friendliest college, so not to flex. But everyone describes us as friendly, and it's just like, it would feel weird not to walk past someone and have them smile at you. At another college, I think if that happened to me, I'd be like offended. I'd take pure offence to that. But yeah, I think especially in Homerton.
You said don't know what's happening outside, but you mentioned how for you class just makes sense, and it's one of the key things that you think about. Obviously at Cambridge, people come from all sorts of different backgrounds, and you mentioned in your bio how there has been a lot of debates that has characterized some of your interactions. What kinds of debates and what topics, and how have those debates come up?
I think it's just more of like because in the sense of debate, I think it's kind of just a mismatch, or like a naivety, I think. Because I think, and the same could be said obviously about me to someone else in their background, because I was lucky enough that I grew up, and I hate when people say this, and I don't want to be that girl, but we were comfortable. We weren't rich, we weren't poor, and then I think, but we were always very like left wing anyway. So then my dad was made redundant after he got ill, and then we were on benefits for a while. So I found, and I really struggled with that through my teen years, and I think it just did, it made me stronger, it really did. And it made me understand a lot more. And I really did. I had compassion already. And then getting to, especially Cambridge, getting to uni, and being with people who don't get that, and who haven't experienced something like that. And that's not to say any less of them. That's not to say that they're a bad person. It's just to say they don't get it. And obviously I'm not saying I get everything, because I don't. There's different struggles. But the debates that we sort of had would be like, I think it would just be some people that were a little bit out of touch. And nothing's springing to my brain. I know there was definitely some occasions. But I'm trying to think now. But I don't know, I'm mainly friends with people who kind of get it. I think I think you attract people that you like have a shared understanding of something with. Because realistically, I think everyone does that thing where they say, with politics especially, that it doesn't really matter to friendship and blah blah blah, like you can still be friends with someone if they have different views to you, but there's a bottom line, and I think I would never be friends with someone who had completely different views to me or anything that really would not fit my ideology at all. But yeah.
So you attribute part of you so-called getting it because of the kind of turning point in your family's life. So then if other people haven't had that turning point, then they understandably may not get it. So obviously we don't want to make everyone go through a turning point just for the sake of getting it. So,
yeah, no.
So what other ways do you think we, and who, you can think about we as in, you know, us as uni students or policymakers or teachers, whoever it is, how can we help more people to get it, because it's important to get it?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It's obviously not to say that people have to go through that to understand it, but I think anyone who's willing to listen and understand someone's point of view, and I think debates are so important. And I don't like the word debate. I mean, it's a debate, but it's more of like a... It's more just like, it's like an educational conversation. You sit there and you go, okay, well, that's my opinion. Now I'm giving you space to express yours. And if their opinion is offensive, then I'll be like, no, let's scrap that one. But I think if they have... It's important to understand where their opinion comes from. Because one of my biggest, like, hatreds is when someone just spouts out what they've read from... Like, well, not what they've read, like, what they've inherited politically or morally or socially, and it's just annoying to me. I think it's, you've got time, especially at uni. That's the biggest opportunity you get to find out, actually, what do I believe in, what am I interested in, and how am I going to express this. But I think it's about, obviously, like, not to be cliche, but as an education student, it's about implementing that, like, getting it from an early age. And I think also, I mean, call me optimistic, but the society we live in is not built to facilitate that at all, because you wouldn't have such difference if you had a more, not forgiving, a more understanding government. So first of all, get the really out of touch politicians out of the House of Commons and get people in there that actually live and work and interact with people in the society and understand and have compassion. I think that's a really important, like, personality trait for anyone with a position of power to have, because if you don't have compassion, then how are you supposed to understand the people you're working with or help people or do anything that's actually productive, especially if you're, like, in charge of a country. But yeah, it's a difficult one to implement. I think it's all sounding quite like in an ideal world, but there's an ideal world somewhere.
So obviously all of our beliefs and all of our viewpoints are tangibly shaped by the experiences that we've been through, and to really listen to someone and to really understand why they are advocating a certain ideology, got to understand why they think that way. And obviously for you, family has been a tremendous part for you, and just, you know, as you mentioned, that turning point as an example. Do you want to just maybe just paint a picture of what you have been through? You know, where did your story begin? And, you know, you said family of teachers, but what else more do you want to share about the context of your background?
It depends how much time you have.
all the time you need.
Yeah, it's been a weird one. I got asked, I went to a therapy session a couple of weeks ago. He spoke to me about, just for anxiety stuff, and he was like, so how is your family dynamic? Like, what was your childhood like? And I was like, I think it was pretty normal. And the further I delved into it, it's like, actually, no, that was a lot of stuff that happened, like, not within my family, but to my family, that really would have shaped the dynamic. So I think the, like, important place to start is that my brother was born at 28 weeks. So he was very premature, very poorly. And that, I think that really, he was the first as well. That really put a thing on my parents where they were like, and from that point, I think they've been very protective of all three of us. I mean, least protective of me because I was the third. So when I was a kid, they didn't really care what I did. So I explained to someone the other day, I don't know if you've ever been to an aquarium, where they have those little, like, wiggly plastic toys that go through your hands and have, like, blue liquid in them and the little fish. Yeah, when I was a child, managed to consume 2 of those. Yeah. I bit through it and drank it. Parents didn't even take me to hospital. They didn't care. I was like, guys, I could not be alive. And I've got my head stuck in a stairgate. So the peak of being a youngest child is many things happened to me that wouldn't have been allowed to slide for my siblings because they were in bubble wrap. But when they got to me, my parents were like, actually, she'll be fine. She's built of stronger stuff. And I think that has made me definitely more, like, headstrong. But then as we got older and more stuff began to happen, I think they did go back to that bubble wrap style. So especially now, after first year of uni, my parents are very much protective. And maybe in a bit of a smothering way. I don't want to make them upset by talking about them, but I love them a lot. They love me too much. I mean, everyone does, but and then as I was saying earlier, like my childhood was pretty normal. Like, I think we had a steady income. My dad worked with, I'd never know what my dad's job title ever was. I just know that he worked with children at different primary schools with additional needs and mental health issues and family struggles, and he's always been very good at just listening. He's been a very good listener, and I think I did inherit that from him, which I'm happy to have got. I may have gotten his broad shoulders, but I also got his compassion.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. But he was doing that, and then he started working at a school around the corner from our house. And it started when I think I was 12, I want to say. I was quite young, early teenage years, not even teen yet, tween. So the first injury he had was sciatica. So he fell, we were roller skating. As a family, we went roller skating, and he fell and he landed on his butt, and he hit his coccyx. And he had sciatica for a very long time. It was really painful. And I think that was the moment where he started just like, it was harder to work. And I think he's had a lot happen. And then after that point, we were on holiday in Exeter. We went to visit his alma mater. I don't know if we call that. Is that what we call it in the UK? I don't think so. But where he went to uni. So we went to visit, and we went to the pub near there. And then when we got home, he started feeling really unwell and he couldn't really eat anything. And every time I talk to people about this, because he's been living off salad, crackers and cup of soup for God knows how long now. I think it's 16 years. No, 6. Because he turns out he had gallbladder stones. Which is just, I didn't even know that was an organ that you could have. I didn't know we had gallbladders. So another time the education system has failed me, biology-wise. Definitely not a STEM student. And then I think his experience of going to the NHS during those years wasn't great. I think it was just after David Cameron, so it wasn't a great time for the NHS or him. And then he had the surgery, and they missed one. So one of the stones from his gallbladder ended up in his pancreas. Then he had acute pancreatitis, and basically this meant that he couldn't work, and he got made redundant very not fairly, we think mildly not legally either, when he was really ill, from this school that he'd been working at. So he left his job to go to the school, and they were like, after a year, they're like, actually, we don't need you anymore, because they academised as well. So that's also another reason I hate academies. But yeah, and then I think we were on benefits for quite a while. I think we still are, actually. Yeah.
So when he got made redundant, what do you remember of the first few days, and what did that mean for the family? Was there a real tangible worry and anxiety that suddenly popped up?
I think it had been growing for a while. I don't remember much of it. I must have been quite young. A lot's happened over the past, and my memory is awful. But I do just remember, like, it's like if I think back over my childhood and like till this point, there is a haze over that part, because he was really poorly and we were all really scared, and he's not ever been a very vulnerable man. He's always been quite tough, and he doesn't really cry, and he doesn't ever get that emotional really. He's quite a softie. And then he was just in this place where it was just like he was so poorly, and it was horrible to watch, and he lost so much weight, and he was, and it was horrible. It was really, it's not nice to watch people you love struggle. And then I think my mum was going through some stuff. I think then that was 2019. I think my dad was recovering at that point, kind of, like he was getting a bit better. My grandma passed away. That broke my mum. And it was just that whole time that I think there was a big level of anxiety. And I think that has added to like mine and my siblings' mental health too. I think that constant fear of something just like switching immediately, just completely flipping your life on its head, and that fear of change. And I mean, maybe I share that with my brother because his like things to be very precise and very consistent as a man with autism. Maybe that's rubbed off on me a little bit because I just hate when stuff changes, and I think everyone does. I think the only constant everyone says in life is change, but just for it to be so sudden and you didn't even see it coming, we were just like, oh, okay, now we're significantly less wealthy. We weren't wealthy, but we had, luckily they'd managed to buy a really cheap house in the 90s because, you know, the housing market was great back then. And as a kid they had, when I was a kid, they had extensions in the house, so we had a house at least. And I'm really thankful that I never had to worry about where I was going to live. And that's something that I, like a lot of people, can be grateful for. But we did struggle. I think my mum worked really hard. She took up a job because she never worked because she was a carer for my brother. And then for me as well when I was born, because I was very poorly when I was born. And then she took up a job cleaning this guy's house. And he was very rich. He was rich to the extent where I was like, they'd throw away brand new clothes all the time. And he'd get rid of bags and bags of clothes, which, I mean, he gave to us in the end because he was going to get rid of them. And my mum was like, oh, my daughter really likes, because he had daughters, really likes clothes. Like, can she like have them, sew them, sell them? Like, you don't want them, do you? And he was like, no, it's fine. So there was like Vivienne Westwood shirts in these piles of clothes with labels on them. There was Michael Kors suits with labels on them. And I ended up taking a lot of that stuff to uni last term. It was Lent term. And I was like, you know what, does anyone want to come and grab something? Because I was like, I've got too many suits at home. Don't want to sell them. It's too much effort. People on Vinted are annoying. And I said to them, the people at Homerton, I extended out. A couple of people did come and take stuff. And then I did ask. I said to people, I don't want any money because people offered. But I was like, but if you want to, I'm going to donate to BEAT, Eating Disorder Charity. So I said to them, if you want to donate money, that would be really lovely. So I think a few people donated £15, like one girl donated £20, she didn't even get anything. I was like, thank you so much. This guy bought me, he was a postgrad student, he bought me I can't remember what it was, but I think it was like a snack he'd made, like it was like a homemade like baked good. It was really sweet. And then I ended up donating £70 to this charity, which I was really happy about. It meant a lot to me. So I'm really grateful to the people from Homerton. Thanks, guys. But yeah, I've really moved away from the question you asked now, haven't I? Told you I could chat. I could chat for England. I'm on a different topic completely. But yeah, no, so she took up a job cleaning and she hated it. She really did. She hated it. And she did it every single week for about 3 years, just so she didn't even use that money on important things. She used it to buy me and my sister dresses. And my sister was going to Oxford in 2018, which meant good for her because when we were poor enough to get her a lot of support, which I also have, luckily. But yeah, my mum would use it to buy us things we wanted. So she wanted us to feel like we weren't so, you know, we didn't need to worry so much. And when I say dresses, I don't mean like bougie ball gowns, but she would treat us every once in a while with that money that she was making. And then it started to look up, I think, over the past 2 years. My dad became a driving instructor. He taught me how to drive. Lucky for me, because it's so expensive. And then now he's got a job that he really wants to do. So it's looking up for the Boxalls. Everyone's a bit happier. I think everyone's feeling a bit brighter. He's got a job he actually really cares about. It's at a farm. He's an education He's an educational person at a farm, so he does interactions with school groups and children with additional needs, and it really is something that he is passionate about. He's always been annoying when we go to farms and zoos. I vividly remember one time at Longley. I don't know if you probably won't have been to Longley. It's a a zoo where you drive around, so the monkeys get in your car and break your windscreen wipers off, that sort of thing. He would always wind us up by rolling down the windows in the, was it moose? Mooses? What's the plural for moose? Just moose, isn't it? I'm always really bad at this. I'm not an English student. At that bit, they had moose, and he'd always roll the window down. And then one time he passed me out of the car into someone else's car, someone we knew. Didn't just get me kidnapped. So yeah, he's very much been an annoying animal man. So yeah, it's looking up. We're improving. The anxiety is easing in terms of the Boxalls. So yeah.
Good. There was a lot to unpack.
I was going to say, I did just keep talking.
No, it's brilliant.
Should get a sign that says stop and just hold it out.
No, not at all. Really thoughtful of you to offer those reflections and to, I guess, appreciate the sacrifices that your parents have made, and they sound like incredible people, really caring, hardworking, thoughtful, and obviously they really love you and your siblings. What was the dynamic like between the siblings? Because at the start of your bio you kind of mentioned how they were quite inspirational or annoying, depending how you look at it.
Both. I think one regret I'll have is that now I'm at a point where I'm old enough to look back, and I've been through a bit more. Me and my brother have always been a bit on and off. There's a 6-year age gap, which could be to do with that. And I think we are just very different as well. So we didn't really get on. And I do feel really bad about it, because I was a young carer, and there were times when I really did look after him, and I always have, and I've always looked out for him. There wouldn't have been any time, because I think he got picked on at secondary school. If I was old enough and I was there, I would have punched someone. Really would have. I love him and I love my sister. We just didn't click. And I think I'm really grateful that now we do. And he'll come and knock on my door after work. He gets back from work and he's like, Sophie, how was your day? And I'm like, it was really good, thank you. Like, his name's Jack. Yeah, and it warms me that I can be in that place, and I do regret the way I spoke to him sometimes and the way we fought. But I think now that I'm old enough, I've definitely grown out of that. But yeah, my sister and my brother always really got on. They were around for a bit before I was around. She's the one that taught him to talk, because he was non-verbal until he was about 5. Mainly because she used to hit him over the head with stuff, and then he'd learnt how to say no and Laurel. So he'd turn up to school with massive bumps on his head because she would hit him with pans, which my parents were really, really not happy about. Yeah, and then I think having siblings really, really made him definitely talk. He was like, you guys are annoying, I'm gonna learn how to speak so I can tell you to stop being annoying. Yeah, and I think we were a little unit, we really were, and I think more so now we really look out for each other, and I think we really care about each other, despite the age gap, because I think my brother's 6 years older than me, he's 25, and my sister's just turned 23, so I am the youngest by a bit, but I am their little one. Like when they were kids, I was 1.5. I used to go and put my hand in the cereal bowl, just steal it. My sister used to feed me Rice Krispies from the table, and that I feel like that really does just sum up our relationship. Like, I will be stealing something from her, and then she'll offer it to me anyway. And it's like they really do look out for me, and I just I'm lucky to be a youngest sibling. I don't think I could have coped at being an oldest, but yeah, I think the dynamic was good between us.
So all three of you have achieved a lot, and obviously, as we know from our academic studies, that statistics for perhaps people on benefits or families who are struggling with being made redundant isn't always the most pleasant, and that's the heart of the social inequality.
Yeah.
So with that context, and with also the reality of all of your achievements, what would you, like, if you were to retrospectively look back, how were you three able to almost like beat the odds and beat the statistics?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there was a lot on offer that my mum really, really, really strived to get us the best. I think it's because my grandma didn't get to go to, I don't think she went to school. She taught herself how to read and write, and she taught my mum how to read and write really early. And then because she had a interesting upbringing, I don't know much about it, but I'm trying to find out. I think it's a bit dark, but then her goal, my mum told me last year, this is relevant by the way, her goal was she really loved education. That was her passion, that's what she loved, and that's what she wanted everyone to have, because she didn't. So I think that's what my mum inherited, and she passed that on to us. Me and my brother and my sister all loved school. Well, I mean, my brother didn't, I don't think. He loved school, but he didn't love the people. We knew it was important, and we knew that we had someone at home telling us, it's really important, I'm really proud of you, but you can do this and you're clever enough for this. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
So it's like you felt that that they've instilled into you the belief that you can thrive and that it is important to learn.
Yeah, and it's not saying that, like, oh, I'm just really hardworking and other people are lazy. It's more about I also had those opportunities there. So lucky for me, I went to a decent school, I had good teachers, I really enjoyed the subjects I was doing, and then I went to a really good college. So I went to Peter Simmons, which is in Winchester.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a really good college.
A school with lots of students
4,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4,000 of us. So everyone at uni always goes, oh, my friend went there. Like, do you know this person? I'm like, yeah, I know about 20 people, mate. I'm not gonna lie, didn't know them. Yeah, so I was really, really fortunate to go there. It was a 45-minute train every day, but it was worth it. And I did get support from the college to get the train as well, which was good. And I think that for me, that was really what pushed me to Cambridge. I don't think if I'd gone anywhere else I would have gone. My sister went to a much worse college than me. They didn't support her at all with her application. They weren't very good. I won't say the college for her. My mum, it comes back to my mum, she really fought for us. She fought for all of us to get to where we wanted to be. And especially my brother, really, really with him, because he was told, no, you can't go to the mainstream secondary school, because he went to a special needs primary school. So he went to one around the corner from our house. Not around the corner, down the road. And he was told he couldn't get GCSEs, and he did. And then he was told he couldn't do A-levels, so he did what's it called? BTEC. A BTEC. Why did that get my mind? That just, no, wasn't in my brain. He did BTEC in biomedical science, and that was 3 years. And then he went, actually, I do want to do A-levels, and they said no, you can't.
Did you always appreciate mums going above and beyond to sacrifice?
I think I did, and there are regrets there as well, which is like, I think sometimes it was a bit much, and obviously as a child you don't recognise that that's what it is. You don't recognise that it's for your own good. It did feel overwhelming at times when I was like, I just want to break. I don't want to do work. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to work really hard. I don't want to do an extra GCSE. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do an EPQ. I don't need your help. I don't need you to throw articles at me, because she is a spammer on Facebook. She sends me article after article on everything that she finds interesting. She made me a folder of printed out Guardian articles that were relevant to education in some way before I went to uni. She was like, you need to take these. And there was about 4 folders. And I was like, Sarah, I love you, but I can't take 4 folders to university. I was like, I can't. I was like, I do have to take, textbooks and stuff like that. I have to take other things. And yeah, bless her. And I am very grateful. But I didn't express it in the best ways at times, and that still happens, but I'm a daughter. That's how mums and daughters are. That's how parents and children are. You don't always recognise at first, but then a couple of days later or a couple of months later, you'll look back and you go, actually, yeah. And you don't have to say it. Sometimes I think you just show it. So me sharing a bit of food with her is me being like, I know that sounds so stupid, but it's like my favourite food or something, and I share a bit with her, and I think she knows, or a hug. And I'm not a very touchy-feely person with my family. Like, I know she loves to, like, hug my sister and stuff, but I'll have a small hug and I'll be like, I'm done now. Don't know why, I've just never really been that much into that, but I think if I hug her properly, she knows I love her, and she feels appreciated in those moments, I think, and I hope she does. But yeah, if I could go back, I probably would have expressed it differently, but I'm very grateful.
That's really beautiful. And when your sister, say, got into Oxford, what did that do to the morale of the family, and how did that change the expectations you have for yourself?
I think it made it seem possible, I guess, but then at the same time it made it seem expected. So I was like, I don't know, I think a lot of people, I think that imposter syndrome really hit hard with me as well, because it hasn't been my dream. Really hasn't. It hasn't been my dream since I was a child, and you expect it from people that go to Cambridge or Oxford. You expect them to be like, yeah, since I was 4 I wanted to go here, or yeah, ever since secondary school. And I think I only really looked into Cambridge when my sister got into Oxford and when I went to college, and I was like, oh, okay, that actually this is an opportunity. And for me it was more of a, it's not because it's a prestigious uni and I'll get like blah, blah, like I'll just get loads of jobs. It was more, this is a good opportunity, and I'll speak to people and I'll meet new people and I'll learn from from people that have experienced stuff and done stuff, and a lot of lecturers have been that way. So I did feel like a fraud when I got that. And I think, yeah, it did change the morale, I guess, when she went to Oxford. I think it made it a weirder dynamic, because I think she really was, as the middle child, I think she was the glue. She really was. She was less headstrong than me. She was less argumentative. So if I fell out with my mum and she was there, it would be resolved a lot quicker. And then she was better to, like, she was a better carer for my brother than I am. Well, I was, because I was too young at that time, I guess, maybe. But yeah, when she left, it hit hard, it really did. And then she came back for holidays, but obviously not that long. And I think it hit my mum the most as well, because we're her girls. And I think she lost one of her girls to Oxford, and I think they thought she changed a bit. And I think as a parent, that's probably so difficult to watch your kid become an adult, because it is just like this thing that you've had. You're my thing, and now you want to go and be your own thing. That's not all right. Come back. But yeah, it did change the dynamic. And then I am surprised they still wanted me to go to Cambridge, because I think they didn't want the same thing to happen to me. I don't think they wanted me to become fancified. Like, I don't think they wanted me to go to Cambridge and expect to come home and have caviar or something like that. My sister didn't, but I think that's what they saw it as sometimes. But yeah, I think it did push me more, though, her getting in.
So you didn't want necessarily to go to Oxbridge. What did you want out of life? And at that point, you've seen that, experienced that turning point. You've realised the real predicaments that economic struggles could have on people's tangible day-to-day life. What did you want out of life at that point?
I honestly don't know. I think the economic side of stuff definitely did push me to be like, okay, yeah, I will try my hardest to get into Cambridge, because I know my mum wants opportunities for me and I want to make her proud. It was more centred around what my parents wanted, and I didn't want to think that I didn't want them to think they failed me if I end up in a tight spot with money, or if I ended up not achieving what I wanted to, or something like that, because I think that's just, as a human, especially as a parent, you're gonna stress, and that's probably one of the reasons I don't want to have kids, because I'd stress too much and annoy them. But yeah, I think I forgot what I was saying.
What did you want out of life?
I think I was taking it day by day, really. I think as a teenage girl, it was mainly just like, okay, let's just try and get through this term of college. Let's try and get through GCSEs. I mean, well, COVID as well. COVID kind of put a spanner in the works, because what I wanted out of life was to not be in lockdown anymore. But it's been weird. Looking back at it now, I'm like, how has this all happened in the last, 4-5 years? But yeah, I think I didn't really know what I wanted to be at that point. I think at one point I wanted to be a lawyer. Yeah, I was going to do law at college, and then I changed my mind and did sociology. But it was more short-term thinking. I think the short-term planning was there, but I didn't really have any long-term plans at that point. I mean, I still don't. I think everyone always expects, especially at Cambridge, everyone's always like, oh, so what do you want to do next? What are you going to do with this education degree? And I'm like, I don't know. Ask me in 2 years' time. I might have figured it out, I might not. But I'm not here to plan for the next 20 years of my life. I'm taking it day by day.
What were some of the ups and downs as a teenage girl?
I think definitely the worst bit. I mean, I think everyone always describes it. It's like a TikTok sound as well. It's like being a woman in your 20s, and I'm extending that to 19 as well, is the trenches. I think it's just a weird spot to be in. And I think as a teenage girl, especially mental health wise, I struggled a lot. It started in 2020 with food. It was not fun. I think that's just, the media has ingrained that into a lot of people.
What about food?
Just a really disordered relationship with food, and I think it's abhorrent that the amount of teenage girls that struggle with that, and also teenage boys. I think it's becoming a lot more common, and that is horrible. It's horrifying. I'm not a fan of it, obviously. But yeah, I think that was definitely one of the hardest points until I got to uni. And then it's, I think, trying to figure out who you are, and as a woman as well, becoming a woman and trying to figure out who you are, what you want to do, trying to feel liberated, trying to feel like you don't have to fit in a box anymore, even though you still do. and then trying to battle with those like tiny moments that make you feel really pissed off on top of everything else you've got going on internally. And it's like the external does really sink in at this point. Like, I do just come very, very aware of how much horrible stuff happens, or how much inequality there is, especially in terms of sex, and then how much danger there is. It's not safe out there. And it's like in your own workplace you can be unsafe, and with people you think care about you can be unsafe, and it's so hard to navigate that it kind of feels a lot. It just feels a lot. And then you feel a lot, and then you've got to feel a lot and do a lot and be a lot, and then all at the same time you're trying to figure out how the fuck do I get through this, whilst trying to balance relationships, and whilst trying to balance uni, and whilst trying to figure out what I want with my life, and whilst trying to shave my legs every other day, or whilst trying to wash my hair every other day, and it's just so much. And it's trying to uningrain that horrible narrative in your own head that you have to be a certain person, or you have to do certain things to be attractive, or that underlying feeling that you have to look nice to be worthy of anything. And I hate it. I hate that I actually do have that in my head, because I don't want to judge other people how they look, and I don't want to be judged on how I look. I just want to be me. I don't want to be a photo. I don't want to be what my body looks like. I don't want to be what my skin is like. I don't want to be whether or not I have arm hair or leg hair or whatever. I want to be how I make people feel, and what memories I give people, and the laugh that I have, and all of those details, which I think are so much more important, because my brain is so much more important than anything else, and my heart is more important than anything else. And I just think that's the worst part about being a teenage girl, and obviously that applies to men too. It really does. I just think the societal expectation of men is drastically different in terms of looks, and I know it's still the same. It's different, but it's similar, I think.
So it sounds like we are almost held bondage to other people's perception, or at least what we think other people's perceptions are.
Yeah.
And for girls, you're saying that it's a lot about just outer appearance that are not always within our control, and that in itself creates a lot of uncertainty and doubt, and just lots of fluctuations and volatility in our mood is based on that.
Yeah, and it really is based on other people. And I wish it wasn't. And you know that thing where it's like you see someone who's, like I was saying earlier about being unapologetically myself. I'm still not that point. I really wish I was, because I wish I could. Like yesterday on the coach. I was on the coach on the way up here, and I was like, oh, I'm really hungry. I've just gotten out of work. I haven't eaten that much today, but I don't want to get my dinner out, because I don't want people to complain if I'm eating something that smells. Because I had hummus and like avocado. I made a little grain bowl. It was great. I had some vegetarian stuff, like corn on top of it, and it was really good. I was proud of myself. I was like, this looks incredible. I cannot wait to scram this. And I was sat there, and in the back of my head, very loudly, it was like, other people are going to complain. Why are you eating in front of people? All that. And it's that monologue where it's like, actually stop it. Like, let me live. Let me just eat this meal. And I wish that voice, that I think everyone has it, whether or not it's subtle or very loud, it's there.
Does the knowledge of what you just said of everyone has it, it's subtle, not loud, does that give you any relief or comfort?
I was like what we were talking about earlier with the rationally, you know something, and you're like, yeah, I'm intelligent. I know that that's stupid, but emotionally you're like,
you still feel it. Yep.
You feel smothered and overwhelmed, and it's like, it's really hard to strike that balance. Especially with mental health. It's like so hard, because especially as a Cambridge student, as someone who's pretty educated, and I'm sure you feel the same. It's like rationally I'm actually quite smart. It's like, what? I have a brain in there. But then it's like my heart feels louder sometimes. Or that weird little worry path in my brain feels like it's dominating everything. And I think that is one of the biggest things I've learned at uni. Really, rationality and versus emotion, and like empathy, and being very sensitive. I'm a big softie. I feel a lot. And that's been so much, to say the least. But yeah, I don't think there's any consolation in the fact that everyone has it. I think everyone knows that. But yeah, here we are. Like if I go to the gym, I'm like, oh, everyone's looking at me, everyone's judging me for only being able to lift 10 kilograms on a bench press, like, I can't even get the thing out, oh my god, how do I move this, what if like, the mark of, like, my sweat is on the chair, what if people judge me, and it's like, actually, that guy over there is lifting, like, 80 kilograms, that guy over there is doing sit-ups, someone's over there struggling with something, someone's having a chat, no one gives a shit, no one cares what I'm doing right now, I'm a teenage girl in the gym, and no one's looking at me, you know, and it's like, I know that, but yet here I am, sat looking around like, who's looking at me? Who's looking at me? Just go on my phone like, what? Someone's looking at what music I'm listening to. Oh, I should probably skip the She's the Brightest Star from Nativity soundtrack thing. Like, I shouldn't listen to that in the gym. What if someone sees it? You know, and it's like that constant thing in your head. As a human, it's a human condition to worry and worry and worry and worry until there's a point where you stop worrying.
That's really
and
interesting.
It becomes too much.
And I find with, like, lots of people used to say that you hate being on alert that you're being watched, but also part of us also wants some attention. Like, it's a really
it's a battle
paradox of if no one watches you and if no one cares, then you feel like, oh, am I not attracting attention?
Am I invisible? Yeah, it's really horrible to strike that balance. Because it's like, if I'm in the gym, I'm in my little sports set, I want someone to look at me and compliment how much I'm lifting. I want someone to look at me and be nice to me. But the moment someone's judging me, I'm going to start panicking. So it's so contradictory, and I think that's the case in everyday life. It's
so
like,
who were the role models who you looked to, whether they were people you knew or people you didn't know, that helped you to deal with these so-called human conditional, you know, stresses?
I think mainly throughout my childhood, it's definitely my sister. She really did, she was like my rock, really. And then my friends from home, I've known them for years, especially Neve, spelt funny. She was really there. Niamh, yeah. Weird. It's quite funny. I might just call her Niv on here now, because everyone does that. Or Neem.
Yeah.
She says Niamh as well. Quite funny. I'm lucky to have quite an easy name. But yeah, I think definitely over the past 2 years, she's been really there for me, because as I was mentioning, the first year of my uni has been very tumultuous. A lot of mental health stuff. I think it was a long time coming. But yeah, it's looking up. But she's been there for me. And then I think definitely this year at uni, my friend Lily, I met her in... We only started being friends at the end of Lent term, early Easter. And she's become one of the most inspirational people in my life. I think I look to her for most of the time. When it comes to something, I look to her and I think, what would she do? What would she say to me right now? Because you just meet those people in your life that they know you inside out. They really do. And they didn't even ask. They just do. And I think it's this beautiful thing where it's like, I think there are just certain people you are meant to meet. And I don't mean that in a romantic way. I don't believe in that. I think you make a relationship with someone in that sense. But I think friends, platonic soulmates, is one of the loveliest things that I think anyone could ever experience. And I think it's what I've definitely developed over the past 2 years, especially as an adult. I think it's been so much easier to...
What do people like about you?
I don't know. I don't really know. I think all of the stuff I've been through has made me funnier. So I have some sort of comedic value. And I think I am very much like... I'm very empathetic. I think I'm good at listening. I'm good at giving advice. But I'm not good at taking my own advice. So I think I'm not a role model to other people in terms of making life decisions. I'm very much not. But I think what I'd like to think that people like about me is that when I give someone a bit of my heart, I give it to them completely. So with every one of my friends, there's not a day that goes past where they don't know how I feel about them, I think. And I may not say it all the time, but they know I love them, and they know that I'm there for them, and they know that I'm there to make an awful dad joke, or say something horrific, or say slay too many times, or just do something very me. And I like to think that that's what people like about me, but I'm not sure.
So in terms of like your sister, you know, she went to Oxford, you went to Cambridge, and then she came to Cambridge during your first year.
Yeah, she stole my thunder.
Did you catch up with her often at uni, and what advice did she give you about surviving and thriving in an institution like Cambridge?
Yeah, I think I get asked a lot, because when I say that we both go to Cambridge, a lot of, well, we both went, she's done now, she's finished her masters, but people are always like, oh, you guys must be really clever, and oh, did you see her loads then? And I'm like, actually, I think I only saw her 8 times, maybe, altogether, which could be a lot. But I think 3 or 4 of those were when I was in hospital, because I was really ill. But I don't remember, I don't think we talked much about actually being at Cambridge. I think it was more just having that comfort there, and that little bit of home, because I'm definitely a firm believer in home as, like, people, not a place. So it was nice to have that there, especially in such a crazy world, and that Cambridge bubble, and it was like that little gap in the bubble where my sister was there. I was like, okay, well, there's a channel back, there's a channel back out of this here, and we just catch up. I think we had dinner at the Oak Bistro down by, one of the churches, I can't remember what it's called, the big junction bit. She took me out for dinner there after my birthday when we went back to uni. And then she came to see me at Adam Brooks when I was in there with swollen tonsils. It was a great time. But yeah, I think it was, I don't know how everyone else did it. And I think also I kind of developed sisters on my own accord at uni. I think definitely womanhood kicked in for all of us. Like, we were there for each other and we looked out for each other, especially with my, like, female friends. So it was just, she was just one of my sisters there, I guess. But yeah, it was good to have her there. Although at first I wasn't a fan of it, but when she announced that she was going before results day as well, so she found out she got onto the Masters about a month before I found out if I'd gotten it or not. And I was like, so now I have to get in, because you've gone to Oxford and Cambridge, and now I'm going to have to do a Masters, and I keep making the jokes, I'm going to have to go and do a postgrad course in America at one of the Ivy Leagues or something like that, just to one-up her. Don't really want to, but I might just do it to spite her. That's just what younger siblings do. But yeah, no, it's been good to have her there.
Fantastic. And what do you do in your free time, or how do you study outside of, set hours?
I feel like my approach to learning is very, very fleeting. I think I'm hardworking, but I'm also very, I get very bored very easily. So if it's something I enjoy, I'm in love with it. I'm learning it, I'm reading about it, I'm really committing time to it. So I remember a character education essay I was writing about. I found a political hole in it. It was like the funding. Where was the funding coming from? It was from this neoliberal right-wing group in America. I was like, oh, I love this. And I was like reading 50 articles about it. And then I got back to uni. I was supposed to have written it over the Christmas break, and I wrote it in a day because I was like smashing this essay out. I was like, I'm enjoying this. But then I got an essay about language acquisition in children, and I was like, and I was sat there with my Zotero up with no readings on it, nothing had been done, and I was sat there and I was like, language acquisition is, give me a minute, looking at the definition. It was just like, what am I doing here if I'm passionate about it?
I love the character education one.
It was really good. It was the JTF?
John Templeton Foundation.
So interesting. And then it was
there was that paper on
the as well.
Duckworth, Angela Duckworth.
Just loved it. Yeah. Might just go back and read that.
One of the readings had the mind map of all the funding and the different stakeholders and the people. I found it really interesting.
The fact you still remember that from, because it was first year, wasn't it? Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Hopefully I'll remember it.
That's probably my favourite kind of intellectual interest in education, is like character education and well-being, and how do we promote virtue.
Yeah.
The Colborne, the stages of education. It was interesting. Kohlberg, yeah.
Yeah, no.
That was very much what my school kind of offered as well, with the character education. It was that kind of unique selling points that I kind of came with that bit of background in that. And some of the stakeholders were actually quite linked with my school. So it was really interesting. I'm glad you found that helpful as well.
Yeah, I did end up in some sort of loophole. No, not loophole. What's it called?
It all comes down to these are the right things to do, but who's going to support it? Who's going to back it? And also who's
going to say what the right things to do are, and how are they put in charge, and where's the corruption at? But yeah, no. Yeah, it was good.
So, in terms of again, back to school, I guess. You were taking the train for 45 minutes. What did you do on the train, and did you get much free time? Because I guess travelling would have taken up, 2 hours of your day.
Well, I used to do, because basically I when I was a kid, I did gymnastics since I was 4.
You were coaching, weren't you?
Yeah, I ended up coaching as well.
That's
so I did
cool.
gymnastics when I was 4, and then I ended up, I think I was 14 when I started working. So I got a job up there. I was a homegrown coach, they called me. And because it was basically like having a spare set of parents. It was Bev and Julie, and they ran this little home gym in Portsmouth. It was lovely. It was really good. And then I had to stop because I got injured. So I crushed my toe in 2020 with a trampoline leg. Never go near a trampoline again. Like the school ones where they fold out the metal leg. Kind of like Olympic trampolines. So I was folding one out and it crushed my toe. And then after that, I didn't really do gymnastics anymore. So for a bit at college, when I was doing the 45-minute train, I was still going. I was trying to get back into it. And I was like, first of all, I get home at 6 p.m. most nights. I'm leaving at 6 a.m. Getting to college, I'm going in all day. I'm in Winchester, which is fairly far away from my house. I don't have time. I did cheerleading at college. I did do that. That was every Friday. And then I was going to the gym at that point. I was really enjoying that. It was just my little walk along 20 minutes to my gym. But yeah, I competed in a cheer competition last year. It was quite fun. Very different world. I mean, I did try and take up cheer at uni as well. I got onto the Cougars. But then I got poorly, so I had to not, because I wasn't allowed to do contact sports anymore, and I was like, kind of contact sport? I don't know, is cheer a contact sport?
Of course.
But I thought, I'll chance it and not, and then I did rowing afterwards, but not a rower. I'm not claiming to be a rower. But yeah, I didn't have much spare time at college. I've always been interested in, clothes. So I used to go shopping a lot. I'm very much a charity shopper, or if a family member has old clothes, I'd give them to me now. Or look through them.
Why clothes?
I don't know. I've just always loved them. I think when I was 9, as a kid when you have 10 different career changes every day, I want to be this, I want to be that. I was really stuck on the idea of being a fashion designer. Really was. I used to get my mum to buy me Vogue subscriptions. So I got Vogue every month for a year for my birthday. I got a mannequin. They got me my little pink John Lewis sewing machine. And I used to have fabrics and I used to just make stuff. And I really enjoyed it. And I think I've always been quite creative in the sense of making things and then being able to look at them and feel fulfilled. But yeah, I don't know why I've loved clothes. I always have. I think when I have a good outfit on, I feel good. Or when I'm wearing a bright colour, or I'm wearing something and someone compliments it and I go, yeah, I got it for £2. Then I feel like I have the biggest ego on the planet when it comes to that. So I think that's definitely where it came from. So I did some sewing, but yeah, I didn't have many other hobbies. Oh wait, no, I don't. Why am I forgetting that? I ran a small business for a bit. I was a entrepreneur. I made jewellery out of wire and crystals, and I made rings because that's what everyone was doing at the time. And I made beaded rings, and then I made necklaces, and I've made some bracelets recently, and it's I've still got all the stuff for it. So what I do now is if one of my friends has a birthday, I'll make them some jewellery. So I made my friend a pair of amethyst earrings and a bracelet.
That's really nice.
And then all my co-workers, I've managed to give them all a bracelet as well. And I really enjoy sitting there and
those small
put
acts
love
of
into
personal,
something. Yeah, and it's I sat there, and one of my friends at work, she's called Amy. She loves Taylor Swift, and so do I. So I made her a Taylor Swift bracelet. So I just put all different colours for all of her different albums.
On that note, then, has there been any particularly meaningful gifts that you've received?
I have to think. It's difficult.
Because a lot of it is about timing, right? Getting it from the right person at the right time.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. So I got into a relationship beginning of uni, which probably was a bit too soon, and it was very lovely. He still is, and I hope we can still be friends. But he gave me a very thoughtful gift. He made me a little fold out box. It was quite sweet. And then, I love letters. I really do. Like notes. I really love that. I love when someone writes something and it's for you and it's for your eyes, and it's not a message on Snapchat or Instagram. It's a personalised. They've taken the time. They've got a piece of paper out and they've written to you. Because I think writing is it's a lost art. But I love it just feels more personal to write. Not it doesn't necessarily have to be a love letter, but I just love. I think I love when people write down their feelings and express what they can't vocally. So every time I've received a note, I've kept it.
You keep it.
Yeah. And I've kept every birthday card.
Wow.
over the past 5 years. I think I've still got them. I think my mum's tried to get me to bin them.
So what do you think makes a good handwritten note? Is it just honesty? Is it just the messiness and the chaoticness that defines each of us? Like which of the cards and have touched you the most, and are they what people expect it to be?
I think it's the vulnerability, and also almost like the confession of like, you know, this is how I feel about you. So like with my oldest friends, they'll write down how they're grateful for me, or they'll write down a memory they remember, and it's just that hole into someone's heart of like where I sit there. That's how it feels. It feels like they're telling me, this is where you are, this is how I feel about you. It's never going to change, and it's permanent. You write something down, it's permanent, unless you write it in pencil. But in a pen and a birthday card that I'm keeping, it's permanent. And especially as someone, I'm mentally ill, but I also have this thing where I do doubt a lot whether or not people enjoy being around me, and I do have that constant, like it's been described as chronic self-esteem issues, but I love the idea that someone could write down how they're feeling and it won't change necessarily. I mean, it can, and I think a lot of the time the meaningful gifts I've received have been from boyfriends, which is disgusting, ew. But they still mean something, because it was how someone felt about who I was at the time. And just because those words don't apply anymore doesn't mean that someone else doesn't feel them, or doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. It just means I'm not that person anymore, because I'm not going to be who I was when I was 16. I'm like when I had a boyfriend when I was 16 and he wrote me a little note. It's not going to feel the same. It's not going to be the same, because I'm not that person anymore, and I'm glad I'm not. But yeah, I think I just love that part of it, and I it really does mean a lot to me when someone writes to me instead of like just chucking money at me, because I feel like gifts, to a certain extent, the more money you spend on someone, the less it means, I think. I don't think you need to spend money to show that you care about someone.
It's the time and the
because that's why I love making jewellery for people. Or what I wanted to do is make like my friend a top for her birthday. Like I wanted to sew her a top, so I might still try and do that, but my sewing machine is buried under stuff at the moment. But I think if I've put a little bit of myself into something, whether that be a note, a piece of jewellery, I don't even know, a drawing, I can't draw, a poem, something like that, it means so much more than...
Interesting too about what you said about like it shows vulnerability as well, you know, especially I think speaking as a guy, sometimes it can feel hard to express emotions, and you kind of, when you write the card, you're like, well, what if they show it to someone else? What if it's released ever? Like,
back to that anxiety of everyone caring too much about like what everyone thinks of them. Yeah. But when you've written that down and you're saying like, what if they show it to someone, you're accepting that. You're going, okay, well, this is how I feel, and I'm going to claim it. I'm going to claim that vulnerability. I'm going to take that back and seize it. And also because what you're saying about being a man and speaking about emotions, it's so important, and I wish it was different, because every guy I've spoken to ever has always said that they found it really hard, and it's a shame. And I think with what you're saying, like when writing it down, you can express what you can't say.
So I've recently just written like a handwritten apology letter, and it's like when I'm writing, like my hands are almost shaking. It's like, oh my god, this is now permanent. But I almost felt like you just got to believe that there is goodness, that if you are honest and if you mean it, then people won't take it out of context. And you can tell when it's how it's been written as well. Like I think if someone texted me saying sorry, I think texting is the worst invention ever. It's great to be like, yeah, I'm around the corner, let me in your house now, I don't want to knock on the door. But there's no intonation there, there's no expression, there's just like, I mean, there's emojis, but what's that gonna do? It's like, oh, I'm really sorry, sad face. I'm sorry I accidentally hit you. Sad face. Like, it's like there's nothing there, you know? And I think with a letter, even though it's not spoken, it's written. So the times when you said you've been hurt by other people, whatever context that is, would you have appreciated an written apology from them, and what would have made a great written apology? Or have you received any apologies?
Kind of. I think there's definitely situations where I wouldn't have let that slide. But I think it's a step. No matter what, if you write to someone and you take that time out of your day to write and say, I'm really sorry about this, blah, blah, blah. And even if it was the smallest thing, like, you just said something that really upset them or blah, blah, blah. And I think it just shows that understanding that you've done something wrong, and it took you more time than it would have to text saying, really sorry, kiss, kiss. Like, it's just more, it feels more human rather than robotic in a way. But yeah, I don't think I've ever received an apology letter.
Do you want to receive an apology letter for the times that people have hurt you? Will that make a difference?
I don't think so. I think I'm quite stubborn. I mean, I think there's that forgive and forget battle, because I'd like to forget more than forgive with certain stuff, because there's just inexcusable ways that people have behaved, or yeah, and I think it goes back to that thing of not wanting it to happen to other people. I don't really care anymore. I don't want to be associated with you if you've hurt me or you've taken advantage of me or blah blah blah. I don't care. I don't want your apology. Stick it up your ass. Don't want it. Go give it to someone else, or just don't do that again to anyone else. You don't need to apologise. You need to change. And I think in situations where it's not an apology that's needed, it's change entirely and a reversal of that behaviour, then that's not a case for a letter of apologies to someone, because I think you've gone too far. But in other situations, I think, yeah, it would be nice to receive a letter, and it would feel a lot easier to forgive someone, I think. But
Interesting. Have you ever written an apology to someone?
I think so. I think a couple of times. Not over anything massive. I think, and sometimes it's not even shared. So I've gotten this trait for the past year and a bit. Especially after I came out of that relationship. It's not poetry, it's just writing down how I feel. I've definitely done that a lot more, and it's more of an apology to them through, I'll try and phrase it right. It's not to them, they'll never see it. It's a letter I won't send.
Like a cathartic.
Yeah, it's I'll write that down, or a lot of the time it will come into my head. I don't know, I think I just doubt the fact that it sounds alright, or I just feel like they won't appreciate it, or it just seems a bit stupid or old-fashioned, or I don't know.
But do you feel guilty that you perhaps don't send that off and they...
No, I think because I'll just resort to speaking to them or saying something else, but I've never done anything that awful. But I think, good. Yeah, I think in looking to the future, it's definitely, I think it's a good outlet. I love writing stuff down. I think every time something comes in my head that sounds good, I'll write it down on my phone, which is why I have no storage. And I think one day I'd love to look back, especially because I've been through a hard time and I wrote during that time. I'd love to look back and write maybe when I'm rich and famous, I'll write a memoir. This was poems I wrote when I was sad. Or not poems, just words. And it's kind of just me on a page. It's me in a book. It's me summarised so that you can stomach it. But
so if someone were to write a biography of you at this point in time, what do you think the titles or subtitles would be?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, that's actually kind of embarrassing, but I did try and start writing something on the train yesterday.
An autobiography?
Yeah, well, not really an auto. It was more it was supposed to be a story, because I've been reading a lot. I've been really enjoying it. I read Lessons in Chemistry. I don't know if you've read that. It's really good. Really good. It's about a woman trying to get into science in the 50s. Really good. But yeah, it prompted me to think, actually, I'll write something down. I'm never going to finish it. I'm never going to actually properly write it. But I was like, what, 2.5 hour coach? I can come back to it one day. But I didn't know what it would be called. I really don't know.
So I guess what I'm thinking about, the last sentence in your bio about the expectation of figuring out your extraordinary dreams that you put in quotes, but just feeling pretty ordinary. I'm just trying to understand more about that tension between the innate aspiration we will have to progress and to be important and to achieve things, versus oftentimes most of us are quite normal, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but how do you kind of grapple with the push and pull in that regard?
Yeah, it's difficult to express, I guess. I think I don't really know if I do grapple with it. I think I'm very much I flip between the two. So one day I'll be oh, okay, this is good, I can do this, and I'll have like a sudden burst of ambition and like hope for myself, and then other times I'll just be like, ugh, it feels like a dead end. And especially like in first year of uni, like I was feeling very depressed, and it just felt like there was nothing there for me anymore. And it was like,
is there anything tangible that you could visualize now that if you could achieve, then you will feel like you're not that ordinary? Like perhaps it's publishing a book, perhaps it's getting a job, perhaps it's, I don't know, like is there anything concrete that you can point out as if I get that, then?
Well, I think I'll rephrase your question. I think I don't want to be extraordinary. I want being ordinary to be good enough. You know what I mean? Like, I think the expectation to have extraordinary dreams and be like, oh yeah, if I achieve this, I'll be really good and I'll be worthy of something.
That's the problem that
I just want to make people smile. You know, I want to make someone feel good about themselves. I want to smile at someone on the tube and they smile back at me. I want to walk down the street and compliment someone and not fear that they're gonna go weird. But I just want it to be the smaller stuff that actually matters, instead of what car you have, what house you live in, how much money you have, and I think it's such a shame that we lose sight of that as well. And I think people forget to smile at people, and people forget to take time for themselves, to write, to read, to draw, to do whatever to nurture the soul, because that is important. And yeah, and I think...
Are you spiritual?
I don't think so. I think my grandma really was, and I think I inherited a bit of that from her, because I think there's definitely part of that woman in my heart somewhere, like in my soul somewhere. I do believe we have like a soul. I don't know.
So
I'm not well read on it.
So when we die, you think our soul will, you know, what happens when we die?
Well, because it's energy, it's transfer of energy, and I think energy will carry stuff. I'm not scientific, but that's my explanation.
Does God exist? Could God exist?
I don't know. I'd like to believe it, but I think people are in their own right to believe whatever they want that makes them feel happy. And I think that, why can't it all exist? You know what I mean? It's like, there could be... We're all living in our own different worlds. This isn't the same planet for everyone. Like, of course there's going to be someone on someone's shoulder. And I read this one thing in this book called Tuesdays with Maury, which is another recommendation. It really it changed my life. It's about this guy with ALS, or motor neurons in the UK. And he teaches this other guy who he lectured at. He was a university lecturer, and he meets him on Tuesdays, and he talks about life. And he said something about Buddhists and how they believe that there's a little bird living on their shoulder every day. And he says, imagine that little bird is asking you, are you being who you want to be today? And I think that really stuck with me. I read that book 2.5 years ago, and that quote goes around my head every day. And I think there's little bits of every faith and every belief system and every opinion that can be taken and put somewhere else. It's like a really mismatched puzzle. And I think that's what we all are. We're all taking bits of different things and different people, and I learned something from this person, and I take my coffee with vanilla and oat milk because my friend made me a vanilla oat latte once and I loved it, and she loved it. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm carrying that piece of her with me. And it's that puzzle of us that becomes everyone else, and then it just expands and expands and expands, and you become so much more than yourself. And yeah, I think that really should be something that everyone reminds themselves of every day.
Is it quite beautiful to think about that way?
Yeah.
That every interaction we have, we take something and we give something, and the world
because I'll take
just
something
changes.
away from this, and you'll take something away from this, and then tomorrow I'll take something else from someone else. Not physically, I'm not actually going to thieve anything. But like, I love that the
you
people
can take
that
the
we
ice
know.
latte with you.
The cup, I'll keep the straw. You dropped yours on the floor, so you can take the germs on that coffee shop floor. But I think, and it's like that going back to the thing about God, and I think what we want to know is that the people we love and that ourselves will live on, but I think we will anyway. So I don't need to believe in a God, and I respect anyone that does. And I think those people live on with the people that live on, and then they'll just keep going because everyone knows each other. It's really strange. I'm actually related to someone I work with now. I came back, he has the same last name as me, and he's lovely, and we were really getting on, and I was acting like a younger sister anyway. And then it turns out, because he was saying he's from a bit near me with farmers, and I just think the world is so small that I'm related to someone, so we have like the same great-great-great-great-grandfather or something. But yeah, I think you're going to meet people, and you're going to make an impact on their life no matter what you do. whether it be you actually interact with them or not. I could literally have smiled at someone on the tube. I won't go back to the tube again because I was smiling at everyone on the tube. I don't know if that's a weird thing for people to do, but I'm a smiler. You're going to affect people's lives whether or not you like it. So you might as well try and do it in a good way.
Do you believe in fate then?
What I was saying with platonic friendships, I think, yeah, I do believe in fate there. But I also think, because it's like that whole thing about family and then the friends of the family you choose. And I really do believe that. You can choose who you want to be friends with. If you put as much in as you're getting, or you put more than you're getting, or whatever you invest into a friendship or a relationship, you get it back. In whether that be from them or from the world or in terms of how you feel. I really do believe that you can also choose your own fate. I don't think anyone's destined to do well or do badly or anything like that. And I like that. I think it offers hope. And I think hope is really important to me as well. It's my middle name too. And it's because the story is quite cute. My great-grandfather, he passed away the morning I was born. So my great-grandma, she called me what did she call me? I was just her replacement for him. She said that his soul was given to me, and she kind of just believed that I was really special. And I really like to remember that sometimes when I'm not feeling too good about myself. You know what? This old woman who didn't really know me that well, but she loved me no matter what. I was special to her, so I should be special to myself. And then basically at his funeral, my mum still hadn't decided a middle name for me. She said what the guy said, I can't remember what they're called. What people that celebrant? Someone said at the end, he said, and when it gets dark, just remember that there will always be hope. And she went, it's a good name. So that's how I ended up with my middle name. And I think I'll remind myself that more because I don't. It's like, I'm actually named after the leaving sentence of someone delivering a eulogy about a really incredible man. So I might as well remind myself because it's in my name. So, and Sophie means wisdom. Well, Sophia means wisdom in Greek. So I should remember that as well when I'm being a bit not wise.
Wise and hopeful.
It's a combination. But yeah, I think fate, hope, all of those nice little words, they all have meaning to different people. So
in the context of giving you a legacy-worthy interview, we've covered a fair bit. Obviously, there's always more to cover, but just to capture a snapshot of where you are now, and hopefully you can look back on this recording with lots of meaning as something concrete and tangible that gives you hope as well. And hopefully, is there anything else you want to include in this recording, or else I've got some questions to wrap up?
I don't think so. I don't think I have any wise words, ironically. I just think, I think one thing I'll take away from the first year of uni, specifically, is that as much as other people are really important, no one is more important than yourself. But just because you need to prioritise yourself doesn't mean you need to leave other people behind or do stuff to appease people to make yourself feel better. And I think just that's something I want people to remember. I do, because it's just so hard to prioritise that. But yeah.
What are some nicknames that you've received?
Oh god, I was talking about this the other day. I got, my sister calls me Sofa. My mum calls me Fifi, which is, Soapy. Soph. Only my friend Holly, that I've known since I was a kid, calls me Soph, really. And then a few more people do now, which I've accepted. I've learned to love, but until I was 16, I think it was just my friend Holly. But then Sophie Boxall. I think that's it. I don't really get nicknames, to be honest. My friend at work calls me Champ, and I call him Chimp. It's quite funny, but yeah, I don't think I have the name for the name for nicknames, really. It's quite a difficult one.
Favourite breakfast?
Ooh, I'm very much because especially my stomach stuff, I have to eat certain foods, so I am very consistent in what I eat. So I do have the exact same dinner pretty much every day, and at uni I had the exact same breakfast. So it'd be granola, but no milk because I don't like milk, and then it would be probiotic yogurt, frozen raspberries, because the fridge I had in my room at uni would freeze stuff underneath it. So I'd freeze my raspberries, and then some sort of nuts and honey and chia seeds.
Something you'll never do again?
Rebound and get into a relationship too quickly.
Best place for a first date or best thing to do on a first date?
Ooh. I feel like I would love to go on a dog walk. I know that sounds so stupid, but like a dog walk and then you end up at a cafe. That would be great.
If your Google searches were revealed to the public, what would, how would life change?
Probably not that much, really. It would just be like, Zoella's vlogs on YouTube at the moment. Top 10 pop culture moments. Recently, a lot of Google Maps for some reason. I'm in London. I'm navigating my way around as a tourist. But yeah, or like what actors are in a certain film. That is a big one in my search history. It's like, oh, what's this actor also in?
If you could have a 1 hour conversation with anyone past or present, who would that be?
Ooh, that's a really difficult one. I think my grandma. I think, because it's been a while, I'm not the same person I was when she passed away.
Do you have a celebrity crush?
Ooh, who was it? I used to love Leonardo DiCaprio when I was a kid. Really loved him. But I don't think I have one anymore. I do find, what's his name? I'm watching Gossip Girl at the moment, so, the guy that plays Joe Goldberg in You, that guy. Can't remember his name, but the people will know.
And final rapid fire question is, what's your wildest prediction about the future?
Ooh.
Maybe not even a rapid fire question, but
my wildest prediction. Oh, I mean, I hope. This is a hope, actually. My wildest prediction is that me and my friend Holly, we're going to get married platonically so that we don't have to marry men. And we're going to move into a massive studio apartment in New Zealand. I'm going to go and do charity work and work in schools and do lots of good things that make me feel good. And she's going to be a freelance artist. And then our other friend Neve is going to come with us when she's on tours doing music production. So, and everyone can come visit. But yeah, that's my prediction / really, really optimistic hope for the future.
Lots of people have made a big impact on your life. As the second last, do you want to just give some words of gratitude to your parents, for example, your sister, your brother, your good friends? Just make it personalised, all the things we talked about of what makes a gift or an act of kindness meaningful, and just, I think it would be nice for you to keep that for now.
I think every person that's ever managed to put up with me and my awful sense of humour, I'm very grateful for, and I hope they know that, and I don't want them to ever forget that. I love them lots, and I think everyone I've met and cared about has a massive space in my heart. I think I have a massive heart. And also I told Andre I'd give him a shout out because he asked me to give him a shout out. So he also told me, I was joking around telling him I was just going to make up loads of rumours about him, but I will just say that he's definitely someone that you should have a chat with. It's an interesting one. But yeah, I think that's about it. I'm very grateful, and I think people should know that. But yeah.
So I guess a final question, always with the wider context of all the things that you have been through, being the youngest child of 3, growing up with the family in education. So I'm guessing, your family has devoted a lot to public service, to helping other people, and that sense of care and compassion had really passed on to you from such a young age. And to have that relationship, with your sister and your older brother, and going through, moments of perhaps not getting along and not appreciating each other, but always coming back to each other and feeling that strength and love of a family. To, for your brother to always defy expectation, for your sister to always overachieve and to seem to be a step ahead of you, such as, getting into Oxford and, doing another master at Cambridge. But also for you to tangibly see the sacrifice that your parents have made, especially after Dad had been unfairly made redundant, and to really see how life can just change in an instant, such as an illness, such as a passing away, such as just some odd occurrence that you just cannot predict, and really feeling that, class inequality and how that tangibly affects our life chances and opportunities. So to go through that turning point, to really first-hand experience that change, and that for you to really get it, the common predicaments that so many of us seem to face with our modern political system or economic structure, where, you know, the inequality where a few just have a lot, whereas most people just don't have much. So for you to develop those left-wing political views as well, then to go through, you know, a tumultuous period as a teenage girl, to have, you know, the common struggles of, you know, body image, food, bullying, being very self-conscious about everything, you know, the male gaze or whatever it is, and just to constantly feel like you are observed and judged, which is obviously not an ideal position for anyone to be in, but not always knowing how to deal with that. Anxiety, self-esteem, you know, all the things that we've talked about, even though we know that most people, if not everyone, probably experiences a fair degree of that, but just because we know it rationally doesn't mean that we emotionally can bypass it. But then to also, you know, value education, to realise the importance of learning, and for mum to really hone that into you with all those Guardian articles and forwarding you and caring about you.
The 50,000 notifications on Messenger,
also for her to, you know, be a cleaner, and to see the difference in lifestyle of the really rich family and them just throwing away clothes that are perfectly in good condition, but they don't really need it, but for you to, I guess, develop that passion in fashion, and to think about maybe that is something that you could do to leverage your kind of creativity and to make a difference in that sense, but also to, you know, have the change of heart of maybe wanting to be a lawyer, maybe want to be a teacher, maybe want to do this, and constantly change your mind, which is really good, and to be, you know, influenced by, you know, British pop culture, you know, with YouTube and social media, thinking about your dreams about being extraordinary, but also realising actually being ordinary is nothing ordinary, you know,
Good
we're
enough.
all unique. To go through those early relationships that you've had, the changes in life. I can see you shivering.
Shuddered.
But to also, you know, have those good relationship with like teachers and the platonic soulmates, and getting to Cambridge and, you know, meeting great people. You know,
Just that they're all right people.
They're all right people.
Not the best, actually, especially that Andre's such a nightmare.
But also, you know, having those ferocious debates about feminism, about class inequality, and just helping more people to have the wider awareness of the wider predicaments that people are facing. With all of those things in mind, and also, you know, summer museum, working, volunteering for as a mentor, for example, doing gymnastics, coaching as well, trying out all the different things, and still contemplating what you want out of life, and doing a really pretty fascinating education degree where you're constantly asked whether you want to be a teacher. But also to, I guess, just taking all that into mind, you know, the typical final questions like, you know, what's one message, quote, or saying you wish every educator would promote and every child would internalise? But I feel like you've touched on a lot of the lessons about hope, about wisdom, about caring for people, about writing a handwritten note, about, you know, going above and beyond and revealing that vulnerability, and to serve and to volunteer. But what are some questions that you wish more people would think about, or ask you, or ask other people? How can we progress more? I know obviously we're all imperfect and we all are in our own little bubble, but what do you think are the questions that we should all think more and ask more, and that can all help us to be more aware to get it?
To get it. I think the main one is just like, it sounds so generic, but it's just critically think everything, because we overthink stuff anyway. So why aren't we extending that to, why do I think that? Why am I thinking this? What belief is that based in? And I think more people should wear their heart on their sleeve when it comes to that. And yeah, it's okay to not know stuff, but that's why we're asking questions. Because if you don't ask questions, how are you ever going to know? Bring it back to Meno and the paradox. Just throwing it back to critical debates year 1, which we both love. Plato, gonna big up Plato. It's you have to ask questions about everything. Question everything. Trust no one. No, just make it really pessimistic. But yeah, I think it's that questioning stuff, and then I think most importantly, it's like reaching that hand out and letting anyone take it and taking anyone else's hands. So, like, it's that when it gets dark and it feels like you've asked too many questions and you don't want to ask anymore, reach a hand out and someone will take it and it's all okay. You know, it's going to be okay.
Well, I hope this has been a worthwhile way to spend
great.
your morning. Yeah. I can say for my part that I feel a bit wobbly from moving to a new city, you know, starting new work and feeling quite unemployable and useless, ironically. Just feeling a bit just out of touch with my normal routines, and I wouldn't go as far as an identity crisis, but definitely feeling quite
but unstable. There's
quite
a lot
unstable
of change.
and quite low. And
tomorrow, I get it. I'm very mentally unstable.
So I think just to have this conversation, I think you have definitely put a smile on my face. You definitely uplifted my spirits and given me lots of really wonderful thoughts to think about, and I really resonated with a lot of the things that you have mentioned, such as you know every interaction we have, we give a little bit and we take a little bit, and it is beautiful to think about that we are in real time creating our life from these different puzzles, and eventually the dots are going to connect and we're going to be able to see the purpose. But I think it's just your honesty and your vulnerability to share all of these things, which, you know, most people probably don't really want to put themselves out there and to reveal, and I think is really special when we really see the complexity and nuances of all the things that we've been through. And I just want to thank you for your courage, and I really just admire also your appreciation for your family. They really do sound like incredible people, you know, mum, dad, sister, brother. They've put up with a lot in life. Life has chucked a lot at them. But the sense of resilience, I think, that overarches or that the Boxall household epitomizes is really, really inspiring. And I think if we can all take a little bit more hope in whatever we face, then we'll all be better off. So thank you very much for everything.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.